my people to cheer. I grew up in a very conservative, almost Amish-feeling family. To say that I didn't fit in is a huge understatement. To say that I rebelled is true, but when it came to my parents, my rebellions were a little bit lame. Because you see, I was sort of afraid of my parents. My mother's breakdowns and my dad's anger. And the only punishment that they both really loved was the silent treatment. And I got that a lot as a kid and even as an adult, and I hated it. I felt like I was walking and breathing, but that I was invisible. So that's why I married John, because he loves to talk, and he never gives anybody the silent treatment. And the story tonight, he's kind of the reason for my rebellion, and he's also the victim of my cowardice. After my, according to my parents, disastrous divorce, they suggested that I wear long skirts and have a bun and be totally celibate. That worked out fine because I wasn't really serious about any of the guys that I dated until John came along. Now, we lived 86.6 miles apart. I worked at a school in Harrington, and he worked at the Westchester Post Office. And after about a year of this commute, we decided that maybe we would try living together. In sin, according to my parents. But here's the thing. I had met John's parents, and some of you might remember the story of when I met his mother and I swallowed that whole garlic because I wasn't used to the Italian food. But he hadn't met my parents because they were not at all interested in my love life unless a nunnery was involved. So I decided that it was time for them to meet. After all, I had a daughter, and the three of us were going to be living together. So I came up with this plan. My daughter was 4. Now, who can resist a little 4-year-old in a tutu? That I would invite them to her dance recital, and that I would get John there, and I would just tell them that he was going to be there. So I told them, and there was silence, of course, but I figured that they would show up because that was their only granddaughter. So I had this plan, and it was really well planned. We were going to go to the recital, we were going to go to the closest Applebee's, mission accomplished. And everything worked out fine until John came in a short-sleeved shirt. There, in full view, was his big-armed snake and his big-armed spider. He had gotten these in New Orleans. He didn't even remember when he got them. I had never told the story to anyone. And I couldn't believe it. To my parents, tattoos were like Hell's Angels, gang rape, prison time. I couldn't very well share that with him because he would have never understood all the implications. But I knew that this wasn't going to work, and I said, John, why do you have on a short-sleeved shirt? And he said, because it's really hot out. And I said, it'll never do. I said, get Kristen's tutu on, and I'll be right back. So I got in the car, and the Blue Hen Mall was like a half hour away. So I went to my closest friend who was married, and I said, Amy, give me a shirt, a long sleeve shirt. And I was practically hyperventilating, so she gave it to me right away. And it was kind of wrinkled up, but I sort of spit on it and sort of smoothed it out a little bit on the way to the car. And when I got back to my house, John was incredulous when I told him to put on the shirt. I said, we don't have time to talk about it. He was glaring at me, and he said, we're going to have to talk about this later. But I said, we're only going to be about 10 minutes late if we leave right now. So we left. And Kristen's group was just about ready to come on stage, so I practically pushed her backstage. And of course, my parents had gotten there really early, and they had a front row seat for us. So I plopped down with John, and just as I started to get settled, I noticed two things. First of all, Kristen wasn't with the group. And secondly, John was having a hell of a time with that shirt. It looked like it was about 2 inches short, and he was pulling down the sleeves, and as he did, he had like this boat neck, and one of the buttons popped off, and his chest hair is like out in full view. And my parents said, where is Kristen? Well, it turns out that Kristen had to go to the bathroom, and she only got on stage for like the last 2 steps, and her tights were down around her ankles. And I don't have the time or the courage to tell you about the dinner, but let me just say one thing. When John went to the bathroom, they said, Jesus Christ, Diane, can't you find somebody better than that? He doesn't even have a shirt that fits. It looks like he's trying to be an aspiring exhibitionist or something. I don't know if my parents ever made it to heaven, but if they did, they're probably looking down in disbelief that I'm still married to this tattooed man and that he never joined a motorcycle gang.
Diane, everybody.